Hello, everyone. How are you? Hi. I see some faces that I recognize from this morning, right? How was seeing President Obama? Oh, my God. Okay, one thing you don't know is that when you were in this room this morning and before you found out that you were coming, we had someone filming your reaction. So before you guys got over there, I had all these videos of you guys like freaking out and going and being all excited, and it was so wonderful. So I just want to say welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. So if you are a future executive, raise your hand. Amazing. If you are a current executive, please raise your hand. Current executive, wonderful. Well, I also want to thank you all for being here because this is really what this is about. A couple of years ago, we had a vision on my team, and I work for Salesforce. And we're the philanthropic team. We work with a lot of workforce development and education institutions to bring programs like this to young people like you. And so we had a vision a couple years ago to make Dreamforce available and accessible for young people. You are our future leaders, and we have a whole strategy within my team that's dedicated to making you future ready and giving you and helping you, empowering you with those tools. So really, the next 2 days are all about you, giving you the tools and skills that you need, making the connections to the current executives so that you can succeed and thrive in whatever it is that you choose to do. So again, we're so excited to have you here. This panel that you're going to listen to right now is going to be super powerful, and it's about the next generation of work. You know, as the future leaders, we know that you have different expectations than, maybe your parents or your grandparents. When you go to work, you're expecting to work for a company that's aligned with your values. You're expecting a lot more diversity than maybe others saw. And so what we want to do, and you're expecting just so many more things, so we really want to talk about that. You want business to respond to the changes in technology and the changes in industry. So there's a lot going on before you even step into the office. So this panel is about kind of all those dynamics that occur when you show up. So we have a power-packed panel that's going to be moderated by Brandon Smart, and I want to welcome up Brandon to introduce himself. Take it away.
All right, this thing on? Sounds like it. Thank you, Ebony. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really excited and honored to be your moderator today. And as I think about and even just look around the room, I'm really excited and happy to see the diversity that we have here. We have executives who have basically leveraged their careers through resources, education, and experience. And we have future executives, those who are getting ready to embark on that same journey. But the thing is, it's not really the same journey anymore. As we think about the future of the workforce, it's ever-changing, the way we live, work, communicate. And when I think about my own path and journey, it's not linear or traditional either. I think about all the things that led me to where I am today, and it's really important that when we think about the future, we continue to adapt to the changing environment that we're in. What I want to share with you all today is a little bit about my story. I'm not going to tell you the whole thing, because we don't have time for that, and you probably don't want to hear all of it. But when I think about 3 things, significant milestones that kind of led me to where I am in my career, it really boils down to 3 major things. So first was my first internship in tech. And that takes me back to being 19 years old as a sophomore at San Jose State University. And there we go, a little Spartan love, okay. At San Jose State University, and I was studying film and media. And I needed a way to sustain myself, to pay rent, tuition, books. I was living with my cousin off campus, and I needed a good paying job. So I figured, why not do something in my field? But I quickly found out that internships in entertainment don't pay really well, if at all. But guess what? Tech internships do. And I'd found out about this organization, much like some of the ones that are represented here today, And through that organization, I was able to land my first internship at Applied Materials, which is a small semiconductor, well, not that small, but a semiconductor company in the Silicon Valley. And so thinking about my journey, I'm really excited to introduce you all to the panel today. We're going to have an awesome discussion and an eye-opening discussion. And I'd like to invite our panel now. So would you please join me in welcoming our panel. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. All right, so I'm going to be asking you all a couple of questions, obviously, but let's introduce you to the room first. So to my direct left, we have Dr. Brandon Nicholson, the founding executive director of the Hidden Genius Project, Heather Hiles, president and CEO of Calbright College, and Mr. Oscar Munoz, the CEO and president of United Airlines. So can you all give us...
United love, baby? Come on. Thank you.
So first, I'd like to start with an opening question. So this whole conversation we're having today is based on the next generation workforce. So what I'd love to do is just open that up and get an interpretation of what you think that means in your context and for your organization. And Heather, I'd love to start with you.
Sure, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you. What we're seeing is a changing of the economy these days where the higher education system is not necessarily keeping pace with all the new jobs and all the new kinds of education and training that needs to prepare people for these new economy jobs. We've seen over the past couple decades is that literally technology has changed and transformed every sector of industry. So whether you're doing agricultural work, manufacturing, construction, et cetera, you have to rely on computers and an analysis of data to do those, to participate in those industries. So, and like I said, although higher education is very important and having credentials and degrees is a very important pathway to being as successful as people want to be, there is a whole kind of dearth of preparation for what we call middle skill jobs, meaning you don't need a degree, but you also need training and preparation to know how to do the work. And so what we're here to do at Calbright is exactly prepare people for those middle skill jobs. But what we're seeing is what you need to do is have the confidence and the experience to learn new things all the time, because there's going to be new software and new challenges created every single day as we figure out how to solve new problems.
That's really interesting. And one of the things I noticed from doing a little research is that really we're not just talking about certain ages or skill sets. We really want to be, cognizant of people that are in our current workforce and how we can up-level them too, right?
Absolutely. Our median age right now is about 35. And there are people that I meet every day who are 50, 55, and realizing that they need new skills in order to be able to participate. And I meet, unfortunately, so many people who are on the other side of the spectrum who are working 12 hours a day, 6 days, 7 days a week with no benefits and earning a minimum wage and can't really support their families well, do not have the lifestyle that they really deserve. Mm-hmm. And so we've got to really figure out how to better equip people to learn new skills along the way.
Absolutely. And Oscar, I know this probably rings true for you as well. Would you mind talking a little bit about what you're doing at United to upskill and reskill the folks who have there?
Sure. But before, actually, since most of you are young folks and we're talking about the future of work, I think the first thing I would tell all of you, because you're here in this room and someone's picked you to be here, the future of work is the fact that you're going to get a job, a great job that's going to sustain your family and yourselves for a long time. A lot of you come from first-generation families, maybe English isn't your first language, all of those things, not relatively, income-wise, not as much. The thing that you have to understand, always remember, through all the trials and tribulations you'll face over your next years, is that you have something going that a lot of people don't have. And I know I had it, and it's what's kept me driving. I suspect it's what the rest of the panel has had a lot of it over the course of time, is you just have a driving desire and need that to succeed. You don't have a choice. You want to do this, and you're going to do this. And what's wonderful of today and what you are going to see represented in front of you is there's a ton of people that are here to support you, to push you, to give you confidence, to give you guidance, to give you all of the things that you need to get there. And so the question on what the programs we do, and I feel so strongly about, is how do we give people the confidence? How do we give people the experience? But more importantly, how do you care? How do you give someone the concept that someone cares about them, cares enough to invest? And all our programs are meant to educate you, teach you, sort of, engage you in regular workplaces so you're familiar. You'd be amazed at how many people just don't even know how to act, how to sit at a dinner, and because it's not something we've ever had to do. I know when I started all my things, I had no idea. I got asked by a counselor, a high school counselor, that's like, hey, Oscar, where are you thinking of going to college? My answer was like, what's a college? That's a true statement. I had no idea. And so I think the thing that you just always remember, that the push, the wing beneath your wings or whatever that phrase is your personal driving desire to succeed because you have to. Don't let that go. And so at United, we build all those sorts of different things, and we can talk about 1,000 different programs. The important part is that human nature, that human aspect of you. You can make this work, and you have incredible resources to make it work for you. So make the best of it.
Incredible resources. That brings me to you, Dr. Brandon.
Yep.
So you work with young adults every day, right? And so you probably understand a lot about what they're looking for as well. But I want you to first be able to introduce yourself to the crowd, and then tell us what you think about, when you think about the next generation, what does that mean for the Hidden Genius Project?
Sure. Well, good afternoon. My name is Brandon Nicholson. As Brandon said, I'm the executive director of the Hidden Genius Project. And just quickly, our mission is to train and mentor Black male youth in technology creation, entrepreneurship, and leadership skills to transform their lives and communities. We do a great deal of programming that's focused on training young people in technology skills and developing software and computer science, things of that nature. With that having been said, our primary aim is really to empower young people to reach their goals and achieve their potential, whether they want to leverage technology to do that or not, but to make sure they have the skills and the understanding of how, and to make sure they have access to the network, right? The network is extremely important to make sure they get those opportunities. So in the work we do at our core, our most intensive work is with young people and young men in high school. And I would say our youth workforce development strategy is first and foremost a youth development strategy, just a holistic youth development strategy wherein we're just wrapping arms around the young people we work with and just making sure they're okay, right? That may sound kind of weird, but if you just think about what life is like from age 14 through 18 or what have you, things can come at us really fast, and we can have really great plans, really great skills, be doing pretty well in school, whatever it is, and then something happens or two things happen back to back, and all of a sudden we feel like it's about to be over, right? So it's so important for us to empower the young people we work with just to build the confidence, build the tools and skills to navigate everything going on in life, and then start with their interests and their passions and help them understand how important their passion and their interests are to their success. And so I think in terms of, and I think we'll probably get to more questions around this, but the work that we do to support young people as they think about the next step is really help them understand what gets them excited, what energizes them. A lot of us, and I imagine a lot of us in this room right now, especially if you're in college or university at this moment, perhaps you're agonizing over what to study, or if you're on the right path, or if the thing that you want to study is going to get you the job, but that's not even the thing that you really love. And what's the thing that is the thing that you love going to be viable? And there's all this stress, right? And a lot of our young people go through that. What we want them to understand is, more than anything, as long as you love it and have a passion, there's a way to find a viable pathway there. Of course, we're here at a technology conference, and artificial intelligence, I'm sure, has been the order of the day, right? And a lot of people think about being a crack mathematician to support machine learning or artificial intelligence development, for example, not even understanding that people make fun of philosophy majors all the time, right? And people understand how to think. Well, expert philosophy majors, experts in how the brain works and think, are getting hired and paid very good money to help understand how to develop technology like artificial intelligence. Because if you want technology to act like the brain, you can't just have people who understand how to write programs and code and build machines. You have to have someone who actually understands how the brain works, right? You see all the incredible art here tied to this conference and Dreamforce. Engineers didn't make that either, right? Artists did. People with creative vision, creative minds. So people who had a passion for building and crafting things are very much involved in one of the most impressive, right, tech conferences you'll ever encounter. So helping our young people understand that the future work is taking what they're good at, taking what matters to them, and helping them leverage that and flex it in a way that'll help them get to more, lucrative and viable opportunities.
Mm-hmm. It's not as structured as it used to be, right? And that kind of brings to the next point, and we talk about recruiting talent. And Heather, I'd love for you to weigh in on this, because one of the things that's really interesting about Calbright is that you're taking this competency-based model approach, where it's not about what degree I have per se, or going for that cookie-cutter role, but more about what can I do to make myself the most viable candidate, right? So can you talk a little bit about that model and why it's so important?
Absolutely. It's a real inspiration for me to also see employers be so instrumental in helping us build these pathways for the training. I couldn't help but notice that Benioff's slogan and theme for this conference is that businesses can be the biggest platform for change. And I'm very open to that possibility, because I see the real potential there. So the way that we partner with employers to help them bring about this change and give back to the workforce of today and tomorrow is that we actually have them identify specific jobs where they can't find enough prepared talent. And we go through a process of analyzing the job and translating that into a set of competencies that are around what we call hard skills, functional skills, and soft skills. And we get literally, if there are 35 competencies for a job, we chunk those into these competencies and we pair them. We provide all of the access to the information, the content for how to do these competencies. And we share all of our content for free to our learners. And we pair them with assessments, so that once you've mastered the content, you can demonstrate your mastery of the competencies. And the bargain we make with the employers that we partner is that once somebody has demonstrated mastery of these competencies, which people can do online, self-paced when they're ready, that then they earn the right to have a paid apprenticeship at the employer site. And that's when employers get to meet people that they maybe never would have even considered for the jobs. We work with people who can't get interviewed for these positions because they're not known, they don't have fancy things to put on their LinkedIn accounts and whatever, and so they just don't even get interviewed, let alone the opportunity to learn the skills to do the jobs. So these paid apprenticeships are so important for both the managers, the hiring managers, as well as for our learners, to get to know each other. And that's when the learner gets to prove, I've mastered these competencies, I can apply them on the job. And once somebody does that, then they've earned the opportunity to get hired into those positions. So we have the employers not only identify the positions, the actual jobs, and the actual competencies, we build out the training and provide all the supports to our learners, but then the employers commit to hiring them with the full salaries and benefits that they would hire any other talent for those positions. And we think that this is the way to break through the socioeconomic barrier that is keeping people out of these opportunities.
Well, that's what I love about that, because you're ready to shift that paradigm, right? And
yes.
It sounds like this is all going to help change things like recruiting practices. And I know, Oscar, for you, when we started at United, it seemed like one of your real core values was to really enable that, right? To enable the recruiting practices to do more for the people that were already there, and then also to open that up more. Can you talk a little bit more about, why and kind of how you went about that?
Well, the why is simple. And I think you've said it incredibly well. You have no idea the skills that are around you until you open your eyes and watch. And the best way to get that immersion and exposure is through programs like this. We hire a ton of folks around the system, and we let them assimilate into our buildings and our functions, and they get this incredible confidence. And one of the things about a company like mine, we have 100,000 employees around the world. We fly 160 million of you all over the world as well. And what is wonderful, and the why it was fun to do at United, is that you see so many people in various levels in the company, but whose backgrounds were maybe a philosophy major or whatever the major we were making fun of earlier. But they've learned the hard way. They've worked in the different systems. They started on the ground doing a host of different things. And so I think with regards to what we try to do is we try to find all of you inside and outside, give you exposure to our senior leaders. And like 100% of the time, people just really take roots and they love what they do. And in a company like ours, you can do so many different jobs. It's so complicated. You see pilots and you see flight attendants, but underneath all that, there are so many jobs in so many different ways that the background for it is, frankly, one of the things we are beginning to learn or appreciate how to test for. What I want in my employees, all 100,000 of them, one core simple gene. And it's as simple as, do you like people? Because if you don't like people, you don't want to be in my business, right? It's just too darn hard. When you're flying 160 million people, you have to really love them. And so we have that core competency to the point. That can be tested in many ways, and there's a lot of tips, but simply you just have to be someone that really appreciates, likes other people that you work with, people that you work around. And so for us to be able to develop those things takes a host of different initiatives and projects, which is why we reach out to organizations like this to get those folks in our system. And you just got to see the beauty of someone coming in on the first day of this, and it's like, I don't know what to do. I'm not sure. I'm not confident, as you were saying, Brandon, about with regards to what direction, have I picked the right, all of those things. Those, young ladies and gentlemen, that is so normal. Put all of that rest aside. Trust in the people that are going to help you, and just watch yourself grow. You'll find your way. And I think increasingly more and more of us big, sort of hiring companies are very open to those kinds of things. So again, the power behind all of this is you, your desire, your focus, and your commitment. And all of us can help you along that way.
Absolutely, and thank you for sharing that. And it reminds me of, when I was that age and trying to figure out what to do, one of the things was you don't always know, but do something productive, right? Even if you don't know exactly what you want, do something that gives you a skill that makes you more of a viable candidate for, whatever you think may be the next opportunity for you. And really that all kind of boils down to the labor market and how it's changing, right? And so Brandon, I'd love to hear from you about, as we think about the labor market changing and really the workforce changing, people coming from your program are going to end up in these positions, and managers are really going to have to learn how to manage difference and manage diversity. What are you seeing in that regard, or kind of what are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I think I have a few thoughts, but I'll just share one or two. And certainly I hope I represent our young people well, and apologies to any young people in the audience who I'm misrepresenting. But I know certainly had a conversation with a few of our alumni who are probably ranging in age from 16 to about 19 or 20 a couple weeks back, and just talking about the experience of applying to a job, right, and what it's like to apply to a job right now, and specifically fill out a job application. When we're having this particular conversation, we also happen to be in the room, and it turns out with some executives and folks who work in human resources and hiring. And it became very apparent that so many of the people who are reviewing or hiring for jobs or even setting policy for companies around how people get into work haven't had to complete a job application in a really long time, like several years, because so many of the opportunities and jobs they've gotten have come through networks and through just shooting me a resume or cover letter, but not filling out an application. And so you have young people who feel as though sometimes when they're applying to a job, they're actually just dropping their name into an abyss, right, and not sure what's going to happen next, and not sure how they can demonstrate what they actually know or who they are in a way to make a compelling case. And I know Salesforce and Workday, among others, have been a champion for the 7-second interview and the video interview. And so I think, young people are encouraged by that, the idea of doing a video interview in 7 seconds that says who you are, what your values are, and what you can do. But I think also when you look at what does it take to then get to the point of bringing someone on and managing them, I think it's so important for us to look at all people, and this is going to sound, I guess, too warm and fuzzy, but really the core tenet of our program, when we're doing work with the Hidden Genius Project, is that each person we encounter has immense potential, immense value, and has something to offer. We're not a program that's meant to address the achievement gap or the hiring gap or build pipelines and talk about what's not. We are really built to talk about what is. And just one example I love to bring up right now about what happens when we, really tap into the power of what young people, especially young people of color, and in our case, Black youth, they can move mountains, they can move chicken sandwiches, they can sell out of chicken sandwiches in the matter of a week without that company having to spend $1. I don't want to double down on their free advertising, but I'm seeing nods and I'm seeing winks, so I think you know which chicken sandwiches I'm talking about. That came from social media, right? And social media campaigns that are really just viral campaigns being driven primarily by young people of color. And Nielsen has actually done the data, for example, to actually study and reveal that, for example, Black youth between 16 and 34 essentially lead the world in content creation and generation and social, also are tremendous early adopters of technology. And so when they get things going, all of a sudden you can sell. I didn't know you could sell out of a chicken sandwich. I didn't know there's chicken, you make a sandwich, I didn't know you could actually sell out. But what's the crazy part is how many young people, how many folks who look like the young people we serve have the opportunity to do social media evangelism or marketing for that company, have access to the networks. They've proven themselves. They can sell out a chicken sandwich. No one in that company was capable of selling out that sandwich. It was the people, it was the young people, much like the ones we work with. But how many of them had the opportunity to show, I'm creative, I have a sense of humor, I understand how to leverage my resources, how to repurpose other content, so that just as a joke, we could just sell. Nobody cared that much about the sandwiches or something fun to do. But how many of those young people had thousands of followers or hundreds of followers and didn't know that they were actually pursuing a career path? And so finding ways to acknowledge the strengths of the people who walk through the door, even though a lot of what we hear about them is in terms of what they can't do or what they are not. I think once we humanize one another and say, you must be capable of all these things, let's see what you can do, let me give you an opportunity to show me. And I think that's what you both were speaking to. All of a sudden, I think you see the experience transform, and I think some of the stuff that can make it hard to work in a place starts to fly out the window.
Brandon, yes.
Thank you.
If I could add something to it, and you and I were
please.
talking about, a tall Brandon and I were talking.
Yes.
One of the things underlying all of that conversation, there's a really, and I hate to keep bringing this up, but it's really important to me, and it should be to you. There's a caring, loving aspect to what you do with folks. Because the question I asked him is, what happens when it doesn't work out, right? You can't find, everyone that comes into his work doesn't ever immediately work out. And he went on to describe a wonderful process where, because of where we're getting these kids, where he's getting these kids, right? Inner city kids in that age group, their environment ain't great. And the propensity and potential for anything happening in their lives is high. Something's gonna go wrong that is either their fault or somebody else's fault. And they keep those kids, they give them chance after chance after chance after chance. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is true loving care. That's what we need for young people, that somebody gives a hoot about them enough to warrant their the things when they don't always go right. That is really what I call proof, not promise. And that's the hardest thing in the inner city. People are always pledging, yeah, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and then people disappear. We need this continuity and support and that kind of thing. So Brandon, I really, really admire you guys for the things that you do there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and as I'm just looking at the panel, I mean, we have something we can unify here, right? The workforce, development side, education, and then eventually business. Imagine if we could all work together that way and create that pipeline. Heather, I'd really love to hear from you thinking about, kind of back to the core competencies side. What are some of the things that you think you're going to see in the future? I know Calbright started and launched this year, about 400 or 500, and you're going to open up that cap at some point. Are there any things you're thinking about in terms of expansion and kind of just where you see this going in the future?
Yep. So Calbright, for now, we're here to serve all Californians, and we are part of the community college system, but we're a statewide solution, and we're the one college that is in the business of getting people into better jobs. So we're not in the credentials business. So we're very unique in that way, and we're here to serve people at their own pace. So that's why we do competency-based instruction, so that people can literally join our programs at 2 a.m. and start the process of learning what they need to learn at their own pace. So we have 3 tracks of training right now: IT support, cybersecurity, and medical coding. But we'll be announcing many more new training programs, probably once a month, starting in January, as we cement our partnerships with companies that are doing data center work, that are doing perhaps some Salesforce-related software, but many others.
She's always pitching. It's awesome.
You have to. You have to. And so we're looking for all the employers who are serious about training up and providing access to and opportunity to folks. So there's no shortage. This state is one of the biggest states that is involved in creating new job opportunities every single day. And that's what's so beautiful about California and this country. And so we just want to make sure that Californians are getting ready for those opportunities. And really, we do want to put the challenge out to business to be the engine and platform for change that they could be, and to not leave us behind. You had asked earlier about kind of why to do this work, and I remember in 2017 I was reading an article in Forbes magazine about economists who made projections that by mid-century, African American and Latino wealth would be at 0. So that means that although we will, at about the same time, be the majority of this country, that means the aggregation of wealth and income inequality are growing drastically. And so we really do have to do new things to change the trajectory and momentum of that terrible wealth gap. People are losing kind of the assets and the wealth that our last generation gained unless we do something really different and drastic.
And so that's where the partnerships become key, right? Because the more of those employers you can work with, you can create that criteria or those credentials that you can then turn around and create new people for that workforce.
They have access to billions of dollars of capital, and they need to invest in our workforce of tomorrow.
Absolutely. And so when we think about the workforce of today,
yes.
We talked a little bit about upskilling and just reskilling. Oscar, I'm curious from your perspective, what are you seeing right now in terms of trying to get that across the board, right? So for the employees that you have now, what are some of the areas that maybe that can happen or that you're seeing opportunities?
Across the board, everything that we do. We have people that we call tech ops, that are maintenance, people that fix the airplanes, and I want to become pilots. So we created a program called Aviate that allows our own pipeline that we can bring them into the thing. They're still employees of the company. They can still do the job that they're doing, but they can slowly begin to train to be something that they have. Otherwise, they have to quit and go spend a lot of money or borrow it and go through a couple of year program to get that and then not have job certainty. So we're always thinking of creative ways and watching great people. This is the thing we do very well at United, at least I feel that way. We're always watching out for talent in so many places. We have a story of a young lady, African American, was working on kind of a factory floor, if you will, but she had an IT sort of technical nature to it. So we found her and started working her in basic data sciences and then data management. And then next thing you know, she's just moving up the ladder, and just about 2 years ago was the first African-American woman to graduate with a PhD from University of Colorado in cybersecurity. She's one of our managing directors in that space. It is awesome to see that. So Dr. Iswakor came in 5 years and such. So And again, all in the confines of this incredible United family. That's the opportunities that we have. And someone like me who's had, oh my God, the blessings to be able to be sitting here doing what I do from where I came from. I'm telling you, look at us. I mean, none of us came from this proverbial where everybody went to college and everybody's like, no, it can be done. And it requires your strength and your skills and all important programs like that. I call, my ascent, if you will, and all the people that have helped me, a duty to care. And my foundation, the kids I sent to college, is all under that premise from that first, counselor that not only asked me where I wanted to go to college, but helped me get that way. I literally had no idea what that was about, right? The whole filling out forms and all that sort of stuff, I had no knowledge. And I probably wouldn't have gone to college without that. So that had a profound impact on me to this very day. It's what drives a lot of the things that we do. So as you see in front of you, all of them have been motivated by similar issues. And as you grow up and as you lift yourself up to these things, do not forget. It's the old Jenny from the block thing, right? A long time ago, it's like, we are all Jennies and Jimmies from the block. And it's important. It's that duty to care. And here's the biggest thing. One of the things that I was telling tall Brandon this.
I like being tall, Brandon, man.
Yeah, you used to be tall, Brandon.
You don't want to stand up and measure that.
No, he's going to lead first.
And this is just, this is a quick story. I'd apologize for all these little stories, but it's just so important to me to make sure people understand the difficulties that everyone has. Communities, people like you, and moving I had. And there's so many things within our control and without our control. So I have this foundation that I send kids to college, period. 4 years, all expenses, no questions. If you have the desire and the capability, but not the means, I'm your guy. So we go and help all these folks. The biggest pushback I get is from parents. Parents, especially single moms, who just look at you in tears and say, don't you promise my child something that you can't deliver? Because that has been their entire life. Entire life, and don't you scream. And that is a huge burden on someone like me to make sure that we never let people down. And this is why it's so wonderful to be on panels like this, because that's what they're doing. They're caring for you in a certain way. So please take advantage. So, sorry.
Well, that's absolutely. And wrap it up. So I know we're going to have a little bit of time, and hopefully y'all have gotten some ideas and some questions that you may want to ask as well, because we will open it up to Q&A in a little bit. But Oscar, I really want to just touch on something you said in that story that I think is really important when you talked about what really leads to employee retention, right? So you're creating avenues for people inside the company, inside United, to really have almost like an exchange program and learn new skills from within that job. Now, I'm not a CEO. But if I was, I would imagine that retention, it costs more to find talent than it does to keep it, right?
Sure does.
So employee morale is huge. And it's just great to see someone like you in that position and having that core values that really trickle down throughout the company. I think it's great that it's not just in tech as well. So kudos.
I'm glad because it is tough, right? I'm a 100-year-old company. And I don't offer the fancy food at every corner and all the things that I see here in California. We just, have cubicles and get your computer and, I walk around and say hi to you all the time. But it is important. There's many ways to capture the hearts and minds of people, and genuine caring and proof with programs and all these, and it's a really important thing. So thank you.
Great. And so just one more question, because I want to give everyone a chance to kind of give their last thoughts on this. So, everything we've talked about so far, the next generation workforce and upskilling and up-leveling our employees and then creating a pipeline for the workforce to become more diverse, really kind of boils down to a lot of business decisions, right? It's mutually beneficial. But we all know that behind any business decision is oftentimes a more personal drive or a personal reason for that. Brandon, we've probably talked about this a ton of times, but would you tell the greater crowd, what's your why?
Yeah, ultimately, I think, I had the opportunity to speak before with Brandon, and I remember that day I shared, my kind of own personal mantra is play angry, and not just be mad all the time or anything like that, but just play angry in the sense that there are just certain things about life or the world we live in that are unsettling for me. So I got to get out of bed every day and really take them on. Every time I get to wake up, I want to make sure I can do as much as I can for as many people as I can to help people have access. I've been so fortunate to have so many people look out for me, at different steps, and I can't imagine a scenario in which I could actually do it on my own. I'm sure there may be somewhere someone has managed to do this, but I haven't seen it up close. But I see a lot of people who don't get the opportunity to get the support that's necessary for them to achieve their goals, and that doesn't make me happy. So when I say play angry, it's old call back to when I played sports, and whether I actually played baseball at 11 years old with Brandon, with not tall Brandon, back in the day.
No, that's not my don't do
But
that.
the only way I was ever effective, especially when I was younger, was I had to focus. I had to actually be angry. So it's this idea of just having a certain level of focus and an emphasis on the end goal, which is helping people help themselves and help others and be leaders in their communities. Whatever I can do to make that happen and help inspire someone, I'm going to do that. But usually it's really hard, and Oscar alluded to that. A lot of stuff doesn't go right, so I need something to keep me going and keep me focused, because if I'm just focusing on the kind of short-term data points, then I can get caught thinking it's not working, when I think we've gotten to see that it really does work and help, and I'm very much a manifestation of what happens when you pour into someone and don't give up.
I think I've seen you play angry before, so I'm sorry. That's your mantra. Heather, we were talking a little bit about this backstage, but your why was very, just impressive and enlightening when you talked about, tapping into that untapped talent. What's the reason behind that for you?
I think, much like Oscar was alluding to, that I just know how fortunate I've been. And I know that intelligence and hustle and everything is evenly distributed throughout our country and throughout the world, but not everybody gets access to the opportunity.
Great point.
And that makes me angry a lot. And I try to channel that into creating more opportunity and access for other people. I just feel so blessed, and I feel like I've had many opportunities to prove people wrong. I mean, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and so I like solving problems that people tell me I can't solve. And that motivates me. It really does. And so I just know all the potential that has been unrealized by so many of us. And that does make me angry, and I try to channel that into creating more opportunity for people.
Beautiful. And Oscar, we'll end it with you. What motivates you personally to create these opportunities for untapped talent?
I'll be brief. You've seen my passion towards this. It's simply, I was a lot of you, and I want a lot of you to become someone like me. We have to drive to this vision where, I'm not the only Latino in the Fortune 100 as a CEO, where I'm the exception, right? We have to drive to a point in a life where we are the expectation. And that's a big driving motivator for me.
I really want to let you know I appreciate you all for sharing your time and your perspective with us today. Hopefully we've got some questions in the crowd. We do have mic runners as well, so throw your hand up and you'll have a mic in it soon enough.
Hi, everybody. My name is Malik Iskandar. I go to San Francisco State University. As long as that, I'm also the president of the National Society of Black Engineers.
Nice.
Thank you. And so my question is, there's a common theme going on about like inclusion and diversity. So I'm wondering, within your guys' companies, how do you guys kind of attack that issue in terms of like the recruiting process? Because I've been interviewing with like a lot of big companies, and they talk about inclusion and diversity. But when I go into the interviews, it's people that don't necessarily look like me. And it kind of creates this kind of like a weird energy, kind of like how we see like in politics, where it's like men are making decisions for women. So how did you guys attack that issue?
I'll start, since I probably do the most hiring in that regard. A couple things. Bias, and in some cases reverse bias work or doesn't work. And so I wouldn't, at least from my company's perspective, what we do is from the top lead to ensure that all rosters for open positions have a multitude of ethnicity and diversity included in them. You cannot just hire one person. In my company, there is not a single person that can hire someone, and there's not a single person that can fire someone, including myself. We have a group of folks, so it's never just one person. And the more you create an environment that's diverse in its nature, you get less of that experience. But the goal is to get a broad array of applicants. And so while you may indeed be speaking with someone that doesn't quite look like you, at least in my company, there's a motivating factor behind them. They are expected to look at you and review you just like everyone else. And that's not going to change overnight. I wish I could put people like you in front of you, but this just, I just can't do that immediately. So don't be discouraged by that. The hiring process is hard. There are thousands of you applying for jobs. And so it's not always an ethnic or a diversity issue. It's just, the best thing you can do is back to a lot of this, all the training, be your best self and prove to people what you can do. That should always be the driver for why people get hired. It's called meritocracy. And anything else is just not going to work. We have to work harder because of the color of our skin. It's just a fact. And I wish I could change that, but it ain't so. So just, become the president of the African American Engineering Group and all that. So that's how you get it. That's how you get recognized. And I don't care if the Martian is sitting in front of you. They're going to see you, baby. They're going to see you and see you strong. So keep that up from our perspective.
Is it okay to jump in? Yeah. I think a lot of people ask us what message we share with our young people, and especially the young men in our program. And, I'll just say again, that experience, we understand, I think, really well what you shared, and that's one of the other things that makes me angry, right? But what I'll say, and absolutely being excellent is job one, for sure. Job two is find the companies that have the culture that fit what you're about. So if you are getting those no's, it could be a great sign that those companies don't have the right culture. Even though they're really cool, they might serve really great lunch, you know what I'm saying? They might, offer the best swag and what have you. There's a lot of organizations, a lot of companies that do. And there are certain companies that do recognize that some of the experiences you've had, some of your strengths are strengths and experiences that will advance their bottom line. Any company that's telling that they're hiring you because of the initiative or that representation or inclusion matters, that can't at the same time tie it to the fact that they understand that it's going to make their company better, then that may not be a place where you want to be. If I could really quickly, there is a company I'll shout out and give free advertisement to today, Gap, that has an executive vice president for risk management. That's a black man from the south side of Chicago. And when I asked where he was from, and he told me the south side of Chicago, I just burst out laughing. And he said, "Why are you laughing?" And I said, "Well, who better to do risk management for a major global company than someone who grew up in the south side of Chicago? That we can leverage our experiences and our background as strengths, right? And there's a company out there that gets that. Someone's going to say, "Yo, you spent all that time in the south side, you understand loss prevention, you understand how to keep your head on the swivel and look out for things that might not go the right way." Now when I saw him last, he was managing supply chain challenges in Hong Kong as there's unrest there, right? But he's thinking I've been through tough times before. It's not fazing him because he was trying to get to school in the South Side, right? So there's some place there, I imagine there's more than one that understands how your experience and your skills dovetail with their bottom line.
That's huge. I'm going to jump in. Sorry, Heather. But what you just said is huge because, and I don't want this point to get lost, right? So it was kind of funny what you said, but I think the huge part about that is that you can apply that to any context, right? So I would say I'm sorry, what's your name? Malik. Keep working on your story. You know what I mean? I know it may feel a little funny sometimes in those situations, but the stronger you can build your own story and thinking about the experiences you've had and how you would apply that to the context that you're trying to put yourself into, you are the right person for the gig, And if you're not, then you're not. You keep pushing, right? But don't let the paranoia take you over. You know what I mean? I think the stronger that you are in your conviction, you're gonna find out what the right situation is. And I would say the same for anybody. But Heather, if you have anything to add.
I think You all have covered it very well. I would double down on the fact that I would look for companies that really appreciate genuine diversity of authentic skills and who you are, and want you to bring your whole self to the business, because you'll see from the senior ranks all the way down true diversity of talents. As President Obama was speaking so eloquently about earlier today, he wanted to, and he did surround himself with people who were geniuses in different areas, who were smarter than him in so many other areas, because that's what it takes to make an organization great. And so if a leader is threatened by people who are smarter than that person, than them in different areas, then that's probably not somewhere where you're going to be able to flourish and be your whole self. So I would also look at the values and how they're expressed through the actions and the personnel and people who are in that organization.
Great question. Oh, we got a hand up here in the middle. Oh, 3 or 4. Choose
She's
wisely.
motivated over there.
Yeah. If you wave really hard,
Yeah.
thank you.
Hello, my name is Stephanie, and I'm here with Co-op today. And my question is, what advice would you give to your younger self at the start of your career?
I would say, if you don't mind me jumping in first, I would say that it'll all happen at the right pace. I think sometimes when we're young and hungry, we want to do so much, we expect it to all happen simultaneously or immediately. And just because it doesn't happen in the way you think it's going to unfold doesn't mean it's not going to happen. My mother had one job for 35 years, and I've probably held like 35 different jobs when I think about different consulting projects and different kinds of challenges I've taken on. And I didn't know what all would unfold and how it would come to be. And so, have that leap of faith and just keep going after the next step. And I think you'll see it unfold in the way that you hope.
Anybody else talking to their younger self?
I think that's spot on for me as well. I would say in a sentence, you don't know, and that's okay. That's
Mm-hmm. I like that question. I want to add to that too, though. So I'm just taking over here. I think for my younger self, I would say, be aware and be afraid of complacency. They say sleep is the cousin of death. Well, complacency is probably sleep's roommate or something like that. Like they hang out together. The more you do, so you get a job, right? And you have certain responsibilities and a scope of work you're supposed to do. But that's the job. If you start thinking wider than that, thinking about the impact that what you actually do tactically, that it has on the company, that it has on others that you work with and collaborate with, you'll start to identify problems that you can solve that maybe other people didn't even know about. And that's where it really gets fun. And I think that's probably what these 3 folks on the stage have in common, among other things, right, is that you're problem solvers. Brandon, you saw an issue and you created a whole organization behind it. Heather, same thing. Oscar, you're changing United from the inside, which is huge. That's all. Nobody knew that was the issue until it popped up, right? So the more you find issues to try to solve, the better you're going to make yourself, and the more collaboration and the more better brand you'll have for yourself as well. So I would add that.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Ocampo at San Francisco State, and I'm also a Project Rebound student and intern. I'm a single mother of 2, and from what Obama was saying and what you guys have been also speaking about, opportunity is not equal. And I think for people of color, specifically youth that transition into adults, I do a lot of community work in California, and I've spread out nationwide. And the people I work with have convictions or come from backgrounds where their system impacted. What do you do to create opportunity for them after they've gone through programs like yours or higher education to be able to get them in the workforce?
we advocate on the front end with our employer partners to try to reduce all the barriers and get assurances from our employers that when somebody has demonstrated their abilities, that they will get hired, even if they do have a record, and even if they do have things that would have traditionally prevented them from getting access to those opportunities. So it's very important that we come to an understanding with our employers on the front end that there's not going to be some kind of glitch that's going to prevent somebody from being hired once they have met the competencies, met the challenges put before them to do the job. I think it's about advocacy and building and educating employers, frankly, about how to be inclusive and to be better employers to our community. Because a lot of us, out of issues of poverty and trying to take care of our families and communities, have done things that we wish we didn't have to do. And to be penalized again and again, it kind of, there's kind of a myth to some of the meritocracy language that I hear these days, which is that if you just do everything right, you've earned the opportunity. But we know that for a lot of us, we start so far behind other people and we haven't had the resources. So to act like that somehow just doesn't change the dynamics of how far we can go is not realistic. And I think we sometimes have to educate ourselves and remind ourselves, again, to be kind and to be human and to understand what people need to be successful.
Looks like we have another couple of questions.
Hello, my name is Andres. I have a question in regards of what you're saying about self-development, and I just want to have a little perspective on overcoming the imposter syndrome when it comes into development and you get the job and you have to kind of try to work extra hard to prove that you should be there. And like me being a self-taught programmer, I feel like it's something that you never grow out of or maybe get over. So I just want to know kind of a little bit of your perspective on that. And yeah.
Yeah.
Probably have the better.
Okay, I'll start. I think that it is, that's why it's helpful to have advocates who can say empirically, you know how to code, you've been able to learn new coding languages, and you've been able to demonstrate your abilities. That is one of the things that I do love about Silicon Valley, is there has been this equalizer, which is people are less interested. I've been an employer and had a tech company. I was never interested in what degrees people came in with. I was interested in the quality of their code, their ability to communicate, to run a Scrum every day, to fix the bugs, et cetera. And I'm interested in what's the pace of development. And so I think if we start to articulate what are the real measures of success and counteract. LinkedIn recently did a study that said that 85% of us get our jobs based on our networks, friends and family who bring us in, get us into the interviews, get us hired. And that goes against and works against a lot of us when we don't have those networks in these organizations. And so we're trying to bring that down and let people's talents speak for themselves. And that's what I think we need to do as an ecosystem and as a community at large. I hope that's helpful. I could talk with you more about that, but you belong. You belong and you have the talents, and you just got to keep building them.
I would add that. You do belong. Once you've gotten into some place, you may not know as much, or other people may have all this. I'm telling you, back to my earlier point, you have more drive and more motivation and more need to succeed than most. And that alone, ladies and gentlemen, will take you past that finish line. So can I make one announcement real quickly? Because they'll kill me if I don't. So in the whole spirit of things, for all of you kind of in the younger skew, high school range, we're about to announce with the mayor about 60 internships at our airport here in San Francisco. 10-week, fully paid. It's part of the program that we do, just like all these other things that are being done. And so part of my team is out there. They're right there in the middle. See them? We have little flyers like this. And what's important is that you're getting the first shot at this. So if you guys get your paperwork in, you'll be the first on the list. So.
Awesome. Thank you. And unfortunately, that's our time. But again, thank you all for sharing, and thank you all for being here. And I think since we've had this shared experience, I would encourage everyone here to meet someone that you don't know already, and maybe someone in a different point in their career. You'd be surprised what you might learn, both sides.
And I'll say we're hiring at calbright.org. So if you go on to calbright.org and look at About Us and careers, we're hiring a lot of people over the next year. So.
And Tall Brandon is going to include Latinx in his program.
All right. Thank you all. Enjoy your afternoon.
Good luck, everybody.